Adolf Hitler suffered, it seems, from a genetic disorder. Researchers have extracted his DNA from a swatch of fabric with Hitler's blood from the sofa on which he killed himself.
There's been historical documentation that Hitler had right-sided cryptorchidism, so this is an undescended testicle.
What if the secrets of history's darkest tyrant could be unlocked from a single drop of blood? Scientists have finally analyzed Hitler's DNA, revealing shocking insights that historians never imagined, from hidden genetic disorders to clues about his mind and body. This research is rewriting what we thought we knew about the man behind the Third Reich. The findings are as disturbing as they are fascinating, leaving experts stunned and raising questions that go far beyond history books. It was April 30th, 1945. In the ruined bunker of Berlin, soldiers found a blood-soaked sofa where Adolf Hitler had died. That sofa sat in history's shadows for decades until a tiny swatch of its fabric, stained with that infamous blood, became the key to an astonishing discovery. It was only recently that an international team of geneticists revealed what such a small fragment could really tell us, and the secrets they unearthed are as chilling as the moment itself. The story begins with an American colonel, Roswell P. Rosengren, who had accompanied General Eisenhower into the Führer bunker at the end of the war. He noticed the couch, its upholstery stained dark, and he took a piece, perhaps not knowing how fateful his choice would be. That scrap was sealed away, carefully preserved through time, until a team of scientists gained access to it. Working across borders, geneticists and historians treated the fabric with both awe and caution. They needed to be certain. Using modern DNA techniques, they compared the genetic material from the blood with samples from a known male line relative of Hitler. The match was perfect. That fabric was not just any remnant. It held Hitler's own blood. From that single, ancient drop of blood, the team began to glimpse traits that history alone could never prove. Recent scientific research has revealed that Adolf Hitler is highly likely to have suffered from a rare genetic disorder called Calman syndrome. This condition is little known outside medical circles, but it can have profound effects on both the body and the mind. Calman syndrome occurs when the brain's hormone-regulating center, the hypothalamus, does not produce enough of the hormones needed for puberty and reproduction. It also affects the sense of smell. People born with this disorder often experience delayed or absent puberty. They may remain infertile, and their ability to detect scents can be reduced or entirely missing. The disorder is caused by genetic mutations that disrupt the development of nerve cells responsible for regulating hormones and smell before birth. These mutations can be inherited in several ways, meaning it can run in families. Medical science can treat the syndrome using hormone replacement therapy. Treatments with testosterone or estrogen can trigger the onset of puberty, help maintain normal hormone levels, and in some cases, even restore fertility. With modern treatment, most people with Calman syndrome can live healthy and functional lives. The research on Hitler focused on a specific genetic clue. Analysis of the preserved blood sample from the bunker showed a deletion in a gene called PROC2. This gene plays a crucial role in the development of sexual organs, and its deletion pointed strongly to Calman syndrome. Scientists were careful to cross-check the data and verify the authenticity of the sample, ensuring that the findings were reliable. The implications of this genetic disorder are striking when applied to the Nazi leader. Individuals with Calman syndrome often have physical effects such as undescended testes and very low testosterone levels. In some cases, there is also the possibility of a micropenis. These are not just minor anatomical variations. They can affect a person's energy, emotional state, self-perception, and capacity for intimate relationships. The presence of Calman syndrome does not excuse his actions in any way. Hitler's crimes were deliberate and conscious. What it does offer is a glimpse into a hidden aspect of his life that historians and psychologists have long speculated about. Understanding his condition allows a more complete picture of the man, not to humanize him, but to comprehend the complex interplay of biology and personality that can influence human behavior. The study of his DNA, particularly the PROC2 gene deletion, also provides a bridge between speculation and fact. These findings lead us to some of the more sensational claims about Hitler's anatomy. They show that the smallest details of his biology, hidden for decades beneath layers of history, may have shaped his private experiences and personal frustrations. From the genetic deletion to the effects on his sexual development, the evidence suggests that the man who dominated history from the stage of power also carried within him a hidden struggle, one that history is only now beginning to understand. For decades, a mocking wartime jingle floated through Allied camps. The song claimed that Hitler had only one testicle. Historians had long whispered about the Nazi leader's unusual sexual development, but concrete proof remained elusive. Now, new scientific research provides compelling evidence that these rumors may have had a basis in fact. Hitler's personal life was minimal. He married Eva Braun, his longtime companion, on April 29, 1945, just one day before their joint suicide in the Berlin bunker as Allied forces closed in. The couple had no children. Despite decades of rumors and conspiracy theories about possible descendants, no credible evidence has ever indicated that Hitler fathered a child. Dr. Alex Kay, a historian at Potsdam University in Germany, explained that these findings could shed light on Hitler's personal and political life. This would help to explain Hitler's highly unusual and almost complete devotion to politics in his life, to the exclusion of any kind of private life. He said, other senior Nazis had wives, children, even extramarital affairs. Hitler is the one person among the whole Nazi leadership who doesn't. Therefore, I think that only under Hitler could the Nazi movement have come to power. Dr. Kay added that Hitler's discomfort around women and his apparent avoidance of intimate relationships had long puzzled historians. No one has ever really been able to explain why Hitler was so uncomfortable around women throughout his life, or why he probably never entered into intimate relations with women. But now we know that he had Calman syndrome. This could be the answer we've been looking for. The new research emphasizes that these findings should not be misused to label or discriminate against people with the same medical conditions. Professor Sir Simon Baron-Cohen, a psychologist, cautioned that behavior is never entirely determined by genetics. Associating Hitler's extreme cruelty with people with these diagnoses risks stigmatizing them, especially when the vast majority of people with these diagnoses are neither violent nor cruel, and many are the opposite, he explained. Professor Turi King, the lead geneticist on the study and known for identifying the remains of Richard III, who also specializes in ancient and forensic DNA at the University of Bath in Western England, also warned against over-interpretation. People see DNA as the silver bullet that will answer everything. People often view DNA as deterministic, which it is not. DNA is always just a part of the puzzle about who somebody is. You cannot see evil in a genome, she said. Despite these cautions, the study provides striking insights. The DNA analysis suggests a plausible link to the long-circulated rumors. Based on the genetic markers associated with Calman syndrome, Hitler had an estimated 1 in 10 chance of having a micropenis. While this does not offer certainty, it aligns with historical speculation and provides a biological explanation for the anomalies noted by contemporaries. Historical documentation also supports the findings. A medical record from 1923 noted that Hitler had one undescended testicle. The physical irregularities would have been apparent from early adulthood, and combined with the low testosterone levels associated with Calman syndrome, they could have shaped his personality, emotional life, and relationships. These intimate biological details may help explain the man behind the public persona. They offer a window into Hitler's psyche, shedding light on his obsessive focus on power, his rigid obsession with racial purity, and perhaps the intensity of his rage and ambition. Scientists are careful to point out, however, that these findings do not explain all of his actions. The DNA provides context, not justification. Beyond these physical traits, the research now turns to Hitler's mind. The next questions scientists hope to answer are equally fascinating. What do his genes reveal about his cognitive tendencies, his social behaviors, and the mechanisms that shaped one of the darkest figures in human history? The answers may offer even deeper insight into the biology of ambition, obsession, and cruelty. World War II was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Over 50 million people are estimated to have died, including 6 million Jews who were systematically murdered. Among the forces driving this unprecedented violence was Adolf Hitler, a man whose decisions shaped the lives and deaths of millions. Now, scientists are uncovering clues about what may have influenced his personality, behavior, and obsessions using the very blueprint of life itself. Geneticist Turi King observed Hitler's genetic profile placed him in a category of people who, under the same ideology, might have been condemned by the very policies he enforced. Hitler's policies are completely around eugenics, she explained. If he had been able to look at his own DNA, he almost certainly would have sent himself. This chilling irony underscores the profound intersection between biology and history. The researchers introduced the concept of polygenic risk scores, or PRS, to explore Hitler's predisposition for certain neurological and behavioral traits. PRS is a method that combines the effects of many small genetic variations to estimate the likelihood of developing particular conditions. In Hitler's case, the scores suggested a higher probability of traits associated with autism spectrum disorder, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. These findings place him among the highest percentiles in the population for such tendencies. Beyond these conditions, the genetic analysis also hinted at traits connected to heightened aggression, extreme obsessiveness, and compulsive focus. While genetics alone cannot explain behavior, these markers may help clarify aspects of Hitler's notorious temperament, including his intolerance for dissent, his obsessive attention to detail in planning military campaigns, and his relentless drive to control every aspect of his surroundings. Scientists cautioned that these predispositions are not deterministic. Genetics does not create cruelty or ambition on its own. But in Hitler's case, the combination of underlying biological tendencies and the environment in which he grew up could have amplified his more rigid, controlling, and vindictive traits. For instance, his genetic profile suggested heightened sensitivity to social stimuli, which might have contributed to his paranoia, suspicion, and fixation on enemies, both imagined and real. These tendencies, paired with the influence of ideology, personal experiences, and historical circumstances, may have shaped his capacity for manipulation, persuasion, and ultimately, mass destruction. Additionally, the analysis provides insight into how his neurological wiring may have affected interpersonal relationships. Hitler's high-risk PRS profile, combined with Calman syndrome affecting his sexual development, could explain his emotional detachment, his avoidance of intimate connections, and his almost exclusive devotion to political and ideological goals. The combination of his physical and neurological traits offers a new lens through which to understand Hitler. Could the predispositions indicated by his PRS have contributed to his obsession with control, his intense focus on politics, and his inability to form deep personal bonds? Could these hidden markers of his body and mind have shaped the very strategy and ideology that led to global catastrophe? While the DNA opens a window into the biology of one of history's most infamous figures, it also reminds us that the full story depends on a complex interplay of environment, upbringing, culture, and choice. The study also addresses a persistent rumor regarding Hitler's ancestry, and what was found shocked everyone. Rumors about Adolf Hitler's ancestry have persisted for decades, even centuries in the making. In 2022, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reignited the speculation by claiming that Hitler had Jewish roots. Lavrov used the claim to justify Russia's stated reason for invading Ukraine, suggesting that the biggest anti-Semites are Jewish themselves. The statement caused immediate controversy, not only because Ukraine's president is Jewish, but because historians and scientists had long debated Hitler's lineage without definitive evidence. Over the years, studies of the DNA of Hitler's relatives hinted at possible links to groups that the Nazi leader sought to annihilate, including Jews. These analyses fueled rumors and speculation, providing fodder for conspiracy theories. Yet these studies were never definitive because they did not analyze Hitler's own DNA. Genetic material from relatives can suggest patterns, but it cannot conclusively prove or disprove claims about an individual. That has now changed with the latest breakthrough in forensic genetics. The key to resolving this centuries-old question came from genetic analysis of Hitler's blood. The results of the genetic analysis are clear. The Y chromosome from the blood matched the male line relative, strongly ruling out any Jewish paternal ancestry. In other words, through his father's line, Hitler was exclusively Austrian-German. This finding effectively ends decades of speculation regarding the Nazi leader's supposed Jewish lineage. For a man obsessed with racial purity, anti-Semitism, and the ideology of Aryan supremacy, the revelation is a bitter twist. The theory that he could have had Jewish ancestry collapses under the weight of his own DNA. Historians note that this clarification matters far beyond trivia about family trees. Hitler built his entire worldview, policies, and propaganda machine on the idea of racial hierarchies. He persecuted millions on the basis of ancestry, enforcing eugenics and anti-Semitic laws with ruthless efficiency. The fact that he had no Jewish blood in his direct paternal line underscores the extremity of his ideology. It highlights that his hatred was entirely constructed from belief and manipulation rather than personal genetic conflict or irony. The confirmation also settles long-standing historical debates that newspapers in Austria had raised in the 1930s. At the time, publications challenged German authorities to disprove claims that Hitler might have had Jewish ancestry. These disputes fueled rumors and political attacks during his rise to power. The new DNA evidence finally provides a definitive answer, demonstrating the power of modern genetics to clarify historical questions that were once impossible to resolve. With his body, mind, and bloodline now mapped, the final question remains: what does this reshaped picture mean for history? How does knowing his genetic profile, his predispositions, and his ancestry change our understanding of the forces that drove one of the most infamous figures in human history? The answers are complex, but they are closer than ever, locked in the very fabric of the past, waiting to be unraveled. The latest research into Adolf Hitler's DNA has brought together revelations about his body, mind, and ancestry in a way that no historian could have imagined decades ago. These findings invite a broader interpretation of the man behind history's most infamous regime. The revelations have generated intense discussion among scholars, scientists, and the public. Historians have largely welcomed the research, but warned against oversimplification. Dr. Alex J. Kay of Potsdam University highlighted that the biological insights might explain why Hitler avoided intimate relationships and devoted himself entirely to political life. Yet scholars such as Professor Thomas Weber of the University of Aberdeen caution that there is no dictator gene. They argue that ideology, historical circumstances, and personal experiences shaped Hitler far more than his biology. For Weber, these findings are interesting but must be interpreted carefully, not sensationalized. Critics in the historical community have been cautious as well. Richard Evans, a prominent historian of Nazi Germany, called the findings fascinating but potentially misleading if interpreted incorrectly. He argued that reducing Hitler to his genetics risks oversimplifying the complex web of ideology, social influence, and historical circumstance that created the conditions for genocide. Others, like historian Deborah Lipstadt, pointed out that understanding his vulnerabilities does not humanize him in a way that excuses his actions. We can examine the biology of evil, she said, without diminishing the responsibility of the man who orchestrated the Holocaust. The public response has been equally mixed. Some commentators view the findings as a rare opportunity to explore how biology may intersect with history, offering insight into how extreme behaviors emerge. Others fear that attention to genetic and anatomical factors could feed narratives that attempt to explain away responsibility for monstrous actions. The discussion raises fundamental questions about the limits of science in interpreting human behavior and morality. At the heart of these debates is a provocative question. If the man who engineered genocide had hidden vulnerabilities, does this humanize him too much, or does it deepen our understanding of how he became what he did? Scientists and historians agree on one critical point. None of these biological insights excuses Hitler's actions. They are not moral causes, and they cannot erase the suffering he inflicted on millions. Instead, they offer a more complete understanding of the human, flawed, and vulnerable body that inhabited the persona of the dictator. The challenge now is to use this knowledge responsibly, to inform historical understanding without diluting moral responsibility, and to explore the interplay between biology, psychology, and history in shaping extraordinary human behavior. What Hitler's blood revealed is more than an unsettling window into one of history's darkest figures. It is a profound warning. Science can help us see villains in new ways, but it does not explain away their evil. In the case of Hitler, the revelations about his biology, a rare genetic disorder, possible anatomical anomalies, and a high statistical risk of neurological traits add nuance, but they do not erase that his real power came from ideology, conscious choice, and historical forces. Advances in genetic science have made this once unthinkable level of insight possible. Thanks to breakthroughs in ancient DNA techniques and next-generation sequencing, researchers can now reconstruct and analyze long-dead individuals' genomes with astonishing accuracy. What was once limited to archaeological fragments is becoming a rich field of inquiry. Paleogenetics, the study of genetic material from ancient remains, now allows scientists to peer into the biology of the past. This progress is not just academic. In recent years, scientists have sequenced genomes from ancient human remains, using those data to trace migrations, study how traits evolved, and better understand the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. Techniques such as museomics let researchers extract DNA even from old museum specimens, opening a treasure chest of genetic stories. With each advance, science gains new tools to examine not just how people looked, but how they may have lived and thought. But with this power comes a serious responsibility. The danger lies in misusing or overinterpreting genetic findings, especially when we apply them to morally charged figures like Hitler. Experts warn that reducing evil to biology risks stigmatizing millions of people who may share some of those genetic traits, but not the destructive ideology. Newsweek and others have highlighted how linking Hitler's cruelty to potential disabilities could fuel dangerous myths. Psychologist Professor Sir Simon Baron-Cohen has been among the loudest voices on this. He cautions that associating neurodivergent traits, like tendencies toward autism or bipolar disorder, with extreme violence is both scientifically flawed and ethically risky. Many people with these conditions are peaceful, productive, kind. Behavior is never determined by genes alone. There is also a bigger lesson here about our approach to history. What does it mean when we look at tyrants through the lens of their genes? On one level, we might gain empathy, insight, or a deeper understanding of their private struggles. On another, we risk forgetting that their power came not from genetic weakness, but from choices, systems, and ideas. If we reduce leaders, past or present, to their biology, we risk missing the hard lessons that come from ideology, politics, and human responsibility. And there is a chilling irony in all of this. The very science that is helping us understand Hitler today was once twisted by him. The Nazis embraced a racist, eugenic ideology, claiming that genetics proved their hatred. Now, modern genetics is exposing not a justification, but a contradiction. By turning the scientific lens on him, we must be careful not to echo the destructive logic he once imposed. The sofa blood from his bunker has yielded secrets many thought lost to history. But those secrets come with a warning. Biology can illuminate, but it cannot absolve. The most dangerous monsters are not just born, they are made through hate, ideology, and choices. As science continues to advance, we must ask ourselves, how will we use this knowledge? Will we let it deepen our understanding or excuse our fears? Will we reflect on history's lessons realistically, not just in terms of genes, but of morality and power? The revelations from Hitler's DNA challenge everything we thought we knew about history, biology, and human behavior. What's your take on the balance between genetics and choice in shaping a person? Share your thoughts and join the discussion in the comments below.